quad god who crumbled at the Olympics, finishing 8th when a gold medal seemed like an absolute certainty, just dropped a series of announcements that completely blindsided the figure skating world. And what he revealed is going to reshape everything we thought we knew about his comeback story and his future in this sport. He was caught on camera doing something that the figure skating world has genuinely never witnessed before in its entire history. During a practice session at the Milano Ice Arena, where he was training for the Olympic Gala just days after his emotionally devastating breakdown on the competitive ice, he landed a rippin' quad axel with both arms held gracefully overhead throughout the entire duration of the jump. Now for those who are not deeply familiar with figure skating terminology, the rippin variation is named after American figure skater Adam Rippon, and it dramatically increases the difficulty of any jump by deliberately shifting the skater's center of gravity in a way that demands extraordinary balance, timing, and body control. It is already one of the most technically demanding modifications a skater can apply to any jump in the sport. Here's what makes this so absolutely jaw-dropping. Ilia Malinin is the only human being on the entire planet who can successfully land a quad axel in official competition. That jump alone, in its standard form, is considered the theoretical ceiling of what is physically possible in figure skating. Nobody else has ever done it on a competitive stage. Yet here he was, just days after the most painful and public defeat of his career, casually landing a completely new variation of that already impossible jump, one that had never been attempted or even seen before at any level, let alone at an Olympic practice session with cameras rolling and the world watching. While social media was still absolutely consumed with conversation about his Olympic collapse, that video exploded across every platform almost immediately after it surfaced. The comments section was flooded with disbelief, admiration, and genuine awe. One user captured the sentiment of thousands when they wrote, "Nobody in the entire world has ever landed a quad axel in competition, and here comes Ilia just casually pulling off brand new variations of the most punishing jump in the sport, right on the heels of one of the most heartbreaking days of his entire life." He's not hiding from what happened. He is not sulking in a hotel room. He is not letting the criticism define him. He is on the ice, and he is evolving right in front of our eyes. That comment alone received tens of thousands of likes because it said out loud what so many people were already thinking. This young man does not process pain the way ordinary people do. He channels it into something extraordinary. The cryptic Instagram post that sent the entire skating community into a frenzy of speculation. Shortly after the practice video began making the rounds online, Ilia posted a video on his Instagram account with a caption that, after everything else he had written, concluded with just 5 words. Coming February 21st, 2026. That specific date is the date of the Olympic Gala, the closing exhibition event of the Milano Cortina 2026 Winter Olympics, and it would serve as his final performance on Olympic ice for this particular game cycle. But what he said surrounding that date is what truly grabbed everyone's attention and refused to let go. He made it unmistakably clear that this performance would not be the kind of soft, emotional, crowd-pleasing routine that people typically associate with Olympic Gala exhibitions. He stated plainly that this would be that version of the story. Not a polished, PR-approved narrative designed to make everyone feel comfortable. The real version. The version that looks directly at the disgusting and relentless online hatred he has been subjected to since the moment his scores were posted. The version that genuinely explains what he has chosen to call the inevitable crash, suggesting that given everything he was carrying internally, everything the public and the media piled onto him, and everything he was demanding of himself, what happened on February 13th was not a random failure, but rather something that had been building beneath the surface for a long time. This is not a skater coming out to apologize to his fans for disappointing them. This is not a carefully choreographed redemption narrative designed to win back public sympathy. This is a statement, pure and deliberate. He's going to stand on that Olympic ice in front of a packed arena and a global television audience, and he's going to show every single person watching exactly what the suffocating weight of Olympic pressure genuinely looks and feels like when it consumes an athlete from the inside out. And he's going to do it entirely on his own terms, in his own way, with no filters and no apologies. That level of emotional honesty and raw courage from a 21-year-old athlete is something that demands respect, regardless of where you stand on his skating or his personality. The Olympics.com exclusive interview that confirmed what many fans had hoped for but were afraid to expect. On Tuesday, February 17th, less than 24 hours before this was written, Ilia Malinin made it official by announcing his return to competitive skating at the World Figure Skating Championships, scheduled to take place in Prague, Czech Republic, from March 23rd through March 29th. Now on its own, that announcement would have been significant enough. A skater of his stature returning to competition just weeks after a highly publicized Olympic collapse is already a major story. But the part that sent shockwaves through the entire figure skating community was the specific goal he laid out. He is not going to Prague simply to compete and restore his confidence. He is not going there to quietly rebuild his reputation over the course of a modest, low-pressure performance. He is going there to win his third consecutive world title, something that has not been achieved by any male skater in the sport since the legendary Nathan Chen dominated the World Championships from 2018 all the way through 2021, claiming 3 straight gold medals in the process. Attempting that same feat just 6 weeks after one of the most talked-about Olympic collapses in recent memory is not a cautious plan. It is a bold, audacious declaration of intent from someone who clearly refuses to let one catastrophic performance define the trajectory of his career. His exact words in that interview were, "I am looking forward to getting myself that redemption competition." Read that sentence carefully. He did not say he was looking forward to skating again. He did not say he was eager to get back out there and have fun. He used the specific word redemption, which tells you everything about how he is framing the next chapter of his story internally. He knows exactly what is at stake. He knows the narrative that is surrounding him right now, and he is not shying away from it. He is walking directly into it. He also made a high-profile appearance on the Today Show the very same day where he told the hosts in plain terms, "I was not ready to handle that to a full extent." It was a moment of genuine, unscripted honesty from a young man who easily could have deflected or given a safer, more guarded answer. He chose transparency instead, openly admitting that the scale of the Olympic spotlight and the magnitude of the expectations placed on him exceeded what he was mentally and emotionally equipped to manage in that specific moment. But the critical word in all of that is was, past tense, because he is now making it abundantly clear that the situation has changed. So let us take a step back and fully understand what actually happened at the Olympics in the weeks leading up to these 3 stunning announcements, because the context makes everything that followed even more remarkable and emotionally complex. Heading into Milano Cortina 2026, Ilia Malinin was not just one of the favorites. He was the favorite, in the most absolute and unqualified sense of that word. He entered those games carrying the full weight of a resume that, for a 21-year-old, was almost incomprehensibly decorated. He was the reigning 2-time world champion. He had claimed the Grand Prix final title 3 consecutive times. He had not lost a single international competition since November of 2023, a streak that stretched across 14 straight victories and covered well over 2 years of dominant, almost untouchable performance at the highest levels of the sport. At the Grand Prix final, he had done something that no one else in the history of figure skating had ever done, landing a record 7 quad jumps within a single free skate program. His world record free skate score stood at a staggering 228.97 points, and what made that number even more mind-bending was his admission afterward that he had been operating at only around 85% of his full capability on that particular day. If you took that statement at face value, it meant the very ceiling of what he was capable of had not yet been seen in competition. Gold in Milano was not a hope, it was not a prediction. For most observers, analysts, and fans of the sport, it was simply an assumption, the kind of outcome so expected that discussing the podium almost felt unnecessary. The team event arrived first. On Saturday, February 7th, he skated the short program and finished in second place behind Japan's Yuma Kageyama. He looked noticeably tense, not quite the fluid and fearless version of himself that audiences had grown accustomed to watching, but still more than capable. The following day, Sunday, February 8th, he stepped it up considerably in the free skate, winning that segment outright and playing a decisive role in securing team gold for the United States. However, he made a conscious and calculated decision to hold back on some of his jump content, not pushing to his absolute maximum, explaining afterward that he was protecting himself and packing his energy specifically for the individual competition, which was where his true Olympic ambitions were centered. It was a sensible strategy from a team and performance management standpoint, but looking back, it also suggests the nerves and the pressure were already beginning to exert their influence far earlier than anyone outside his inner circle would have known. Tuesday, February 10th, the individual short program. This is where things looked genuinely promising and the world exhaled. He delivered one of the strongest short programs of his career that night, opening up a commanding 5-point lead over Kageyama with a score of 108.16. The quad god, as his fans had come to call him with complete sincerity, looked like he had found his footing. He looked composed, powerful, and fully in control of the moment. Gold was looking not just likely, but almost inevitable again. But even in the aftermath of that strong performance, when a lesser athlete might have felt secure and relaxed, he was candid about the fact that the nerves had never fully gone away. He told reporters, "So many eyes, so much attention. It really can get to you if you are not ready to fully embrace it." In retrospect, those words read almost like a warning he was giving himself as much as anyone else. Then came Friday, February 13th, and the free skate that will be talked about for years. Everything that could go wrong went wrong, and it went wrong at the worst possible moment, in the most consequential program of his career to that point. His quad axel, the jump that is his alone, the signature element that separates him from every other skater on the planet, was reduced to a single axle when he could not complete the rotation. He fell hard on a quad lutz. He fell again on a quad salchow. 2 falls, a pop jump, and multiple other errors accumulated into 72 total points in deductions, a number that is almost incomprehensible when you consider where his technical ceiling actually sits. His free skate score came in at 156.33, which placed him 15th out of 24 skaters in that segment alone. He fell from first place overall all the way down to 8th, completely outside the medal positions. Mikhail Shadurov of Kazakhstan stood on the top step of the podium. Yuma Kajiyama of Japan claimed silver. Shun Sato of Japan took bronze. The man who was supposed to be untouchable did not even finish in the top half of the field. It was one of the most shocking and emotionally charged results in the history of Olympic figure skating. What happened immediately afterward was, in many ways, just as significant as the skate itself. He did not disappear. He did not give a scripted non-answer. He did not hide behind vague platitudes about giving it his best. He looked directly at the camera and said, simply and devastatingly, that he blew it. And then he went further, describing with remarkable emotional detail and vulnerability exactly what had happened to him internally during those 4.5 minutes on the ice. He said the nerves became so overwhelming and all-consuming that traumatic memories and painful moments from throughout his life began flooding into his consciousness uninvited, right there in the middle of the most important performance of his career. His legs felt like they had turned to stone beneath him. He could not fill his lungs with air. He felt completely disconnected from his own body and utterly stripped of control. And then he said something that gave genuine insight into the full weight of what he had been carrying. He said that all of the pressure, all of the media attention, all of the relentless scrutiny, and the impossible burden of being the universally expected Olympic gold medalist had simply been too much, not just for that moment, but cumulatively. Over weeks and months leading up to that performance, it was too much to carry alone. Now think about what he chose to do almost immediately after all of that. While the internet was splitting into camps of those who empathized and those who mocked, while the sports world was debating what had gone wrong and whether he would ever recover, he was back on the ice in practice, not running through basic elements to rebuild confidence but landing previously unseen variations of the quad axel, the hardest jump in figure skating, and making them even harder. Let that fully sink in for a moment. This is a young man who had just experienced one of the most public and emotionally exposed failures in recent Olympic history, and his response was to go back to the ice and attempt something no one had ever done before. He was not broken. He was not retreating. He was not seeking comfort in easier territory. He was pushing the boundary of what is physically possible in his sport, and he was doing it while the world was still deciding whether to write him off. The Olympic Gala performance on February 21st was never designed to be a feel-good moment for the audience. It was not crafted to generate sympathy or applause or viral clips of a fallen champion finding redemption through a beautiful program. He has been explicit about what that performance was intended to be. It was meant to be the unfiltered truth. The story of what it actually feels like to carry the weight of a nation's expectations, an entire sport's attention, and years of his own internal pressure into a single 4.5-minute window, and come apart at the seams despite everything you know and everything you are capable of. The story of the vile and relentless online hatred that followed in the hours and days after his scores were posted. The story of what he calls the inevitable crash, which is perhaps the most revealing phrase he has used throughout this entire ordeal, because it implies that he now understands with full clarity that what happened in that free skate was not simply a bad day or a momentary failure of nerve. It was the cumulative result of pressures that had been building silently and relentlessly beneath the surface for far longer than anyone outside his closest circle ever realized. He was not on that Olympic ice to ask for forgiveness. He was there to tell his story on his own terms, without apology and without compromise. And choosing to do that on the largest and most visible stage in winter sport in front of a packed arena and a global audience of millions requires a level of emotional courage and self-possession that is genuinely rare at any age, let alone at 21. And then the World Championships declaration pulled everything into sharp and unmistakable focus. When he used the phrase redemption competition in the Olympics.com interview, it was not a throwaway line chosen for its dramatic effect. It was a precise and deliberate description of his mindset and his mission heading to Prague. He is not going there to quietly recalibrate and ease himself back into competitive skating at a comfortable pace. He is going there with the explicit goal of winning his 3rd consecutive world title, putting himself in the same rarefied company as Nathan Chen, and doing it just 6 weeks removed from the most difficult moment of his career. The audacity of that intention is almost breathtaking when you lay out all the circumstances surrounding it. But perhaps the most quietly powerful thing he has said throughout this entire whirlwind of announcements came during both the Olympics.com interview and his Today Show appearance, and it was expressed in a single grammatical detail that carries enormous significance. He said he did not understand how much that pressure was going to affect him. Was, past tense, That single word tells the whole story of where his head is right now. He is not the same athlete who stepped onto the ice on February 13th. He has now lived through the thing he was not prepared for. He has felt what total psychological overwhelm actually does to his body and his mind when the stakes are at their absolute highest. He has confronted it, named it, examined it, and talked about it publicly with a level of honesty that most professional athletes never allow themselves. And that knowledge, that hard-won, painful, intimate understanding of his own psychological landscape under maximum pressure, is something no training session or coaching session or confidence-building exercise could have ever given him. He had to go through the fire to get it, and now he has it. That is the single most important distinction between the Ilia Malinin who competed in Milano and the one who will take the ice in Prague, not the jump content, not the technical preparation. Not the training volume or the choreography or the scores from his recent practice sessions. The difference is that he now knows the opponent. He has stared the pressure directly in the face, felt it dismantle him piece by piece in real time in front of the entire world, and he is choosing to walk right back into that arena anyway. That is what real competitive courage looks like. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to compete fully and completely in spite of it. 3 monumental announcements in the space of 72 hours. The Ripon quad axel variation says loudly and clearly that he's not standing still, that even in his most vulnerable moments, he's still pushing the frontier of what this sport can be. The February 21st gala performance says that he refuses to let anyone else define or control the story of what happened to him, and that he is strong enough to tell it himself on the biggest possible stage. The World Championships announcement says that he is not running away from the pressure, the expectations, or the painful memory of what happened in Milano. He is running straight toward all of it with his eyes wide open. The quad god that the entire sporting world assumed was shattered just spent 72 hours proving beyond any reasonable doubt that he is anything but. He is 21 years old. He has already accomplished things in this sport that no one his age has ever done, and the most remarkable chapters of his career have almost certainly not yet been written. The Olympics knocked him flat. They exposed vulnerabilities that even he did not know existed. But they did not break him and they did not define him, and these 3 bombshells serve as undeniable proof of that. The comeback is not coming someday. It is already underway, and it started the moment he laced up his skates and went back to the ice to attempt something no one in the world had ever done before. Do you believe Ilia Malinin has what it takes to claim his 3rd straight world title in Prague? Or do you think the emotional shadow of the Olympic collapse will follow him to the Czech Republic and affect his performance when it matters most? Let everyone know what you think in the comments section below. And make sure you are subscribed because we will be covering every moment of the World Championships in March as they unfold. The Quad God's comeback story is only just beginning, and you do not want to miss a single chapter of it.